Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. A radical Islamic Palestinian activist is complaining to his large online following that you can't just hijack planes anymore to protest Israel like the good old days. Oh, dang it. What is this world coming to? Activist Mohammed El-Kurd posted to social media just yesterday, quote, "You can't protest peacefully. You can't boycott. You can't hunger strike. You can't hijack planes. You can't block traffic. You can't throw Molotovs. You can't self-immolate. You can't heckle politicians. You can't march. You can't riot. You can't dissent. You just can't be," end quote. Wait, what? Some of those things are definitely not like the others, Mohammed, and I think you know that. But I also think you think we're too stupid to notice how slyly you interwove violence with peaceful means of protest. And this guy has almost 400,000 followers on X alone. His comment comes in reference to the active duty U.S. Air Force member who committed suicide in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. to protest their war against Hamas. Aaron Bushnell set himself on fire while yelling "Free Palestine" until he couldn't anymore. It's tragic and barbaric, so we do pray for the repose of his soul. Only God knows what mental strife or instability he may have been struggling with. And yet for Bushnell, it still wasn't good enough for the cause he died for, as leftists online are mad that some are honoring his self-immolation by using the phrase "rest in power," arguing that such a moniker can only be used for black people killed by cops or by racism. So poor Bushnell, even after all that, he's still just a filthy white guy in their minds wearing the military uniform of the oppressive American regime, spelled with 3 Ks, of course, KKK for emphasis. There really are no friends among comrades. Stalin should have taught them that much. A friend today could be disappeared tomorrow. Then you have Time magazine using the situation to rewrite the history of Christianity. In this piece, Time mentions how widows in India used to have to throw themselves onto the fires of their deceased husband's funeral pyre to kill themselves to fulfill religious obligations and so as not to be a burden on their families now that their provider was dead. What the article leaves out is how it was the English who stamped out that practice by telling the Indians that if their culture tells women to burn themselves alive, well then their culture, the English culture, insists on killing the men who burn their women in such a way. Guess colonization's good for some things at least. But anyway, the piece then tries to balance out the remark about India by claiming that Christian devotees living under pagan Rome voluntarily chose to commit self-immolation as a sacrificial act. Excuse me? The martyrs were killed for their faith. They did not choose death. They did not choose suicide. They were murdered by those who failed to get them to renounce their faith. It's actually diabolical how Time magazine tried to conflate the two. In a day and age in which suicide is rampant, how dare they try and act like suicide is the stamp of approval by God and the Christian faith? Those people were murdered. Now joining us now to discuss all this and more is Christopher Tremalia, a journalist for the Washington Examiner. Chris, thanks for being here tonight.
No problem, Kara. Thank you for having me.
Great. So what is this world coming to, Chris, that you can't self-immolate anymore or hijack planes or throw Molotov cocktails?
Yeah, I mean, where do you begin with that, right? Like, it's just kind of indicative of the extreme radical behavior of the global left's network today. And they have no rhyme or reason. They have no truth. They have no facts or anything to their ideology. So they kind of come up with these extreme, and this is actually even more extreme than you could get a lot in the United States. But this is just, the extreme behavior that should not be accepted, recognized, or anything, because I mean, where do you come up with this stuff? I mean, you're a sophisticated woman, Kara, and this may not, what I'm about to say is not the most sophisticated argument here, but at some point, can we just tell these people to shut up and just stop? I mean, like, you're coming to the point where you're upset that you cannot commit terrorism, and you're making a false equivalency of someone like who you mentioned in your speech and monologue that was mentally ill or has some mental issues going on that wants to burn himself. I mean, this is not normal. There's nothing normal about this. There's nothing sane about this. And quite frankly, there's nothing productive about this.